So first and foremost, welcome everybody to the Tory Burch Foundation Small Business Webinar Program. Today's webinar is done in partnership with Grow with Google, a training and resource arm of Google designed to help you grow your skills, career, and business. And our topic today is really preparing for that next generation of Google Analytics, making your analytics work for you. And I'm Molly Heffernan, Director of Marketing for the Tory Burch Foundation. I'll be emceeing and fielding questions today, and I'm so thrilled to welcome back Stasia Kudrez, who was with us just a couple weeks ago, talking all about coaching your team. A great webinar. If you didn't get a chance to see it, highly recommend you go back and watch. Stasia is lead educator for the Grow with Google program. She's been speaking for Google since 2005, appearing at hundreds of events on Google's behalf, training thousands and thousands of people across the world, developed online marketing curriculum for major education providers, and clients have included everyone from Harvard Business School of Education, eMarketer.com, Air Jamaica, National Federation of Independent Businesses. So I think headline message, we are in some of the best hands possible today. And Stasia, we are just thrilled to have you here to really get into how to set up your company's website for success in Google Analytics, in the Google Analytics 4, and the primary function of building a strategy and being okay with the change that's about to happen. After Stasia's presentation, we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A. So make sure you use the chat box for all the fun, all the community building, talking to each other, but use the Q&A box to submit your questions. That way there, we don't miss your questions and we can make sure that we get to as many as possible. So today's session will be recorded. So check your inbox for any replay link. And with that, I think, Stasia, let me hand it over to you.
Thank you so much, Molly. Good morning, everybody. How y'all doing out there? Everybody good? Can you guys see my screen? Molly, can you guys type in the chat? Yes, I can.
Not yet.
Okay, let me work on that. Let me try to reshare that. Sharing. Okay, how about now?
We can see it.
Yay! All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Stasia. I have been educating for Google since 2005, so it's been a minute, and I am so honored that the Tory Burch Foundation would invite us back here to speak. And when we first set up these classes, we taught a session, and then like, would you come back and talk about the Google Analytics migration? And I was like, sure, why not? It'll be fun. And the thing that, from chatting with Desiree and Molly before the session started, my understanding is that they've been hearing from lots of small business owners about concerns about what's happening and what you all need to do right now and how to prepare for it. And you probably, if you use Google Analytics, you've been seeing this message, or you've been getting emails that says, you must migrate before July 1st, 2023, or else. And I am here to have everyone just be like, it's gonna be fine. It's really not bad. And this is, for most businesses out there, this is not a big deal. And I'm going to show you what's happening, what, if anything, that you need to do today, and what what kind of implications it might have for your web presence. And honestly, what it really won't. So everyone can kind of start by taking a deep breath and saying, okay, this is not such a big deal. So this workshop today, we don't typically update our workshops, but I was like, this is an important topic. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of tweak the presentation we have and really focus more on really just the migration. So today, I'll give a little bit of intro. How many people out there, does anybody out here not have Google Analytics set up? So let's try that way, because I'm going to assume that most of you do. Okay, we've got one. We've got Sherry. All right, Dr. Gray. Not sure. Okay, so I'll preface this by saying yes. All right. If you do not have Google Analytics set up yet, it's actually in some ways kind of easier because, or if you're not sure, it's kind of easier because when you go through the setup stage, it's automatically going to set it up with the new version of analytics. So you don't even have to worry about any of this migration stuff. Now, the reality is I'm going to make a stab and say that the majority of people on this call have Google Analytics up, even if you don't use it very often or at all. You have it and it's running in the background and you know it's important to have it, but maybe you don't take any action with it. That's still good to have it there. But there are just a few things that you're going to need to do to make this migration to Analytics 4. So for the folks who don't have Google Analytics, I'll just tell you a little bit about what it is. You know, and the reason Analytics is so useful for you is that, I mean, if you go back, so I've been in the internet industry since 96, 97, I guess. And at that time, the hard part was getting data. And you just didn't really know what was happening. You'd like sell an ad and hope that somebody saw it. And you'd look at like hits on a server and be like, well, I think maybe 100 people looked at that. I'm not sure. The difference between 1996 and today is that we are drowning in data. There's so much data available. It's the flip of the problem where now it's really like, well, what do I do with all this? How do I make sense of all of this? And that's what Google Analytics does. I want you to think of it as just sort of as a piece of software that interprets all of this data that can now be collected, and it formats it in reports that we can understand. And that's really, you know, at the core of it, that's what it does. Now, the tool has progressed a lot. And so it has other capabilities as well, like tracking conversions and things like that. There's all sorts of cool things that you can do. But at the heart of it, it's a way to allow you to find the patterns and the connections and the themes and the stories in the data. And these patterns and connections can help you as a marketing manager, as a person who's managing your website, figure out, what does that mean? How do I translate that into changing my website or changing my marketing strategy or changing my product, something based on what you learn about human visitor behavior on, it used to be just your website, now it's your website and your app, all of those touch points that Google Analytics can track. So going forward, here we go. On the surface, you know, when you look at the data, you know, one reaction that people see is that they might be disappointed by that. Well, like, oh, well, that's not as, you know, I did great last month. And then this month I only sold a quarter of the chocolates that I was trying to sell. So one of the things that analytics can do is it can help you. It can help you see the story, but the danger here too is that you don't also want to be immediately reactive, because sometimes what's happening right now is a reflection of a bigger pattern or trend. So that's my one sort of caveat with that. But it can help you start to figure out why you might be seeing changes. And it might simply be like, okay, maybe something's broken on your site and you need to fix it. Or it might be that this is a regular seasonal dip, or maybe there is a new competitor out there, and there are lots of different reasons why it can happen. But it can help you kind of start to figure out what's going on, the story behind that data. Okay, so today's session, I've changed it a little bit just for the Tory Burch Foundation presentation, and I'm going to give you an intro to analytics, and then I'm really going to spend as much time as y'all want talking about the migration from Universal Analytics to GA4, Google Analytics 4. That's where I will try to spend the majority of the time. I'll give you a quick tour of your account and showing you the changes and the features and the reports. And then I'm going to show for everybody my favorite part of Google Analytics 4, which is the analytics search box. And then I'll wrap it up and I'll give you some more resources and we'll do a Q&A. Does that sound good to everybody? I'm like pretending you're all sitting here in the room with me. Yay. Okay, good. So let's talk about this. So, you know, why Google Analytics? So why talk about this product? Well, honestly, it's like probably the most popular analytics program in the world. And I say that based on the fact that just the number of users, there are lots of users. I actually used to use the product when it was called Urchin. It was a a commercial enterprise level product that we would use for our clients at the web development company that I worked for. And it was expensive. It was like, even in the 90s, I think it was like $500 per seat to use this software. And I remember every guy named Ted, the last Friday of every month, that was his job, was to sit and run all the Urchin reports and prepare them for all of our clients. Well, Google bought the software from Urchin and they made it completely free. And they didn't like strip it down. They made it better for people. And there are lots of, theories on why. Probably and I wasn't in the purchasing negotiations or decisions, but one of the reasons from where I sit as, working in this industry, it's that, one of the issues that that Google was having is that before there were good reports available, people would often blame advertisement if there was a dip in business, right? And Google at the time made the majority of their income from revenue from ad clicks on Google Ads, which was called AdWords. And so by integrating Google Analytics with AdWords, which is now Google Ads, it really took all the mystery out. You're like, okay, you can really see if your ads are working or not. And that was the beauty of it, because now you couldn't just say, oh, I'm wasting my money on ads, or I'm wasting my money on this email campaign or this, social media marketing campaign. It really, with these reports, it let you really drill down and figure out what was working and what was not. So that's my theory on why they released it. I'm pretty sure it's a pretty good one. And what analytics does is, again, it helps you understand human behavior on your site. What do they do? How did they get there? What actions did they take when they get there? How did they find you? And then if you set it up, you can manage and track conversions, things that happen, these key actions that happen on your site. Like if somebody completed a purchase, submitted a form, you can have it trigger on events. Like, did somebody watch a video? Did somebody click on this link to schedule an appointment, and more? So that's the kind of stuff that you can learn from using software like Google Analytics. And the reason it's so popular, it's a really good product. I mean, we used to use it for clients, and it's free. Now, there is a paid version of this called Analytics 360. But that is typically used for businesses that get millions and millions and millions of visitors. And I hope for you that someday, hope everyone on this call gets millions and millions of visitors to your website. But for the majority of businesses and small businesses, the free version of analytics is just fine for what you need. It's going to work even for thousands or tens of thousands of visits. Okay, so once you get it set up, it's going to give you a clear picture of who's visiting your site, and it's going to help you achieve your goals. So for example, it might tell you if you were running, if you had analytics set up, it could tell you that social networks might bring a lot of traffic, but they might not buy a lot of products or a certain type of product. Or conversely, you might find that email marketing doesn't bring as many visitors, but they're more likely to make that purchase. So it doesn't tell you what to do. It's not prescriptive in that you set up Google Analytics and you're like, okay, here's the 5 things that you must do next. But it gives you the information that you need to understand how groups of people are behaving once they visit your site, and then help you make actionable decisions based on that information. Now, one thing that you need to do before you really dive into this is think about, you know what, hold on, you don't actually need to do this. Like, take a step back. Even if you're not ready for this, you should set up Google Analytics, just get it running. Because it's not going to hurt anything, and you're going to start collecting data. But when you're ready to actually use Google Analytics to help support your business, support your website, support your marketing programs, then you need to start thinking about your goals. Because if you don't have any goals, then it's really not going to be particularly useful. If you ever, and I'm sure that there's some people, myself included when I first started, who set up Google Analytics. You're all excited. You've got this set, and you go into the reports and you're like, yes, look at all these reports and graphs and data. And you're like, what the heck am I supposed to do with all this, right? That's great. Now I know how many people came and I know what time and blah, blah, blah. But what happens with that information? So the way I encourage small businesses to think about this is to kind of flip it and think of it from the other perspective, where it's not about using Google Analytics and understanding analytics. It's about coming up with a question about your business that relates to your business, and then using Google Analytics as a tool to find the answer. So that's how I would encourage y'all to use this tool. And, it might be that you want to learn where your sales are coming from, or who is sending you the most leads, and do those leads actually turn into customers, and what types of appointments are you getting in what parts of the state or the town or the country. When do people call? When are you getting these phone calls? Because if you're tracking calls and you're like, oh, they're all happening like after I'm closed, maybe you want to give people an option. Maybe you want to have someone answer the phones late at night if those are potential leads that you don't want to lose. You can think about, well, how do I want to use my website or my internet presence to drive foot traffic? And you can figure out, based on your analytics reports, based on, like, are people using it during these times, and how do I leverage that to drive foot traffic to my store? The point is that analytics is not, you're not thinking about analytics goals, you're thinking about business goals. And how does your internet marketing support that? And then once you have an idea of what's going to happen, analytics is the tool that helps you figure out, how close are you? Where can you make improvements? Where are things falling flat and you need to make changes and improvements? So your website and your app, all of your internet presence, tracked by Google Analytics, is going to help you get there. You've probably seen this. I feel like I see this slide in like every single presentation I even give. Yeah, I think my 8-year-old niece was telling me about how she was learning about SMART goals in her classroom, but it's actually relevant. So again, I'm pretty sure that most of you have heard this already, but it really does help. So if you want, when you're creating these goals, make them specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. So those are the parameters that you do want to keep in mind when you are formulating your goals that are applied to Google Analytics. So if you were doing that and you were thinking about, okay, well, now I've figured out what I want to learn, how is Google Analytics going to actually help me? So what it could do, if we're thinking about from the perspective of your website, you could say, all right, I want to understand what content people are actually consuming on my site. So, it'll tell you, like, and that'll tell you, I can see a question that just came in from Nicole, is my website effective? And so that's one of the sort of the pieces of this puzzle that this can start to help you figure out. If your website is helping people find answers to questions, which can then lead in hopefully to a sale or to a conversion or whatever it is that you want to happen, then you'll be able to start to figure that out. Well, are people actually reading the articles? Are they watching the videos, the how-tos that I created? Are they downloading the white papers that I wrote and I published on the site? So it's really about thinking, okay, well, this is what I want to happen. Here is what I want someone to do or to read or to watch that would help me figure out whether or not that desired action, that outcome, was happening. And then analytics will give you that information about whether or not that did happen. So does that make sense? So again, you think, take a step back, a lot of you, analytics is scary to a lot of people, because I'm going to, again, take a stab. I'll bet that most of you are not web analysts. I'm not a web analyst, which quite frankly, I think puts me in a better position to even teach a class like this, because I use Google Analytics as a person who works with small businesses and helps nonprofits and things like that. But I am not I'm not so immersed in data and data analytics that I can't, as someone outside of that industry, be like, I don't know what in the world she's talking about. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to apply this. Because I feel like I'm kind of in your shoes. Like, you were looking at this going, okay, well, how do I use this software? Well, just think of it as a tool for you. It's to help you do your job and to promote your website and your app and to sell your products and services. And you really, if you start from that angle, it just becomes a whole lot more, I think, a whole lot more attainable. So you can look at it to see about what content is being consumed. And then here's where you might use that information. You're like, okay, based on analytics, I see that and maybe you spent all this time getting this live webcam set up on your nonprofit's website, and you're so excited and it's the greatest thing, but no one's actually watching it. And that could tell you a few things. You're like, well, maybe no one else thinks the camera is interesting. Maybe you need to showcase it more on your website. Maybe you need to change the angle of the camera because you're not getting a good shot. Maybe it's just, yep, this content isn't connecting, didn't click. So maybe you try something different. Maybe it's that you wrote a bunch of articles and how-tos and you can see, okay, well, people are actually skipping the text article and just going straight to the videos instead. So that's, and that tells you, okay, everyone prefers the videos. So I now know that next month I'm going to focus on that because that's the format that people tend to be watching. So that is why or how Google Analytics can help you. It can start answering these questions about what's effective and what is not. Okay. Let's see, I'm going to take a quick look at the questions. Okay, examples of goals that companies set. So Sarah wants to know, what kinds of goals do companies set? Well, I mean, let's start with the easy one. I mean, if you're an e-commerce website, then your goal is going to be like, okay, well, did somebody who came to my site, did it actually end up in a successful e-commerce conversion? And if you have an e-commerce website, or some of them automatically hook in, like if you're using a product like Shopify, there are easy integrations within those products. If you have sort of a standalone site or you work at a larger company, you probably have an IT person or an IT department that can help you with that integration. So for most people, unless you are for most people, you don't have to worry about the technology part of that unless you actually work in that IT department. You just care about the reports. Another, well, let's just say you're not e-commerce, and how else would you use it? If you are focused on, a nonprofit that shares information with the public, or promotes policy issues or anything like that, you're interested in seeing, well, are people consuming my content? Is my message getting out there? Are people, if you want someone to take action, whether that's, I want you to plant a garden and post a picture of your new pollinator garden, or I want you to write a letter to your congressperson, and you need to come up with ways that it can be tracked on the website, and that's where analytics can actually help you. So it depends on what it is you're trying to do. And of course, companies can have many goals. Your goals might be like, I want to sell this stuff, but I also want to build a loyal following. I want to build, advocacy with my existing customers. I want them to post photographs on social of, my product in real life. One of my new obsessions is this, it's actually in New York, is this, it's actually not new at all. My daughter tells me, my daughter's 19, and she tells me that I'm so uncool because this brand has actually been around forever, but I'm using this nail polish called Cirque. And I've been fascinated with their marketing campaign, and they have really great stuff, post it on social, and here are the nails in real life. And so that's one of the things that I'm doing. I'm always looking at how brands are positioning themselves. I am not promoting a nail polish brand, but I just did them last night just for you. So it's called Cirque. But my 19-year-old was telling me that I am just way behind the times because she's been using that since middle school. Anyway, let's keep going. So you can also talk about, you can also use analytics to evaluate your channels to see which ones are driving conversion. So I think I mentioned that before, where, maybe social drives traffic, but no conversions, or email has lower traffic, but more conversions. But that's the thing, you don't know. You don't know unless you actually start running or tracking it and using analytics. So that is another way that this tool can actually help you. Thank you, Molly. Okay. So I couldn't promote it, but Molly could say it. All right. So now for all of those folks who are on the call, if you're using analytics for the first time, again, you're kind of in a lucky space because you don't have to worry about any of this migration stuff. Because when you go to set up your analytics account at g.co/analytics and you click Get Started Today and you create your Google Analytics account, you do need to have a Google account to do that. So if that's a Gmail address, if you use Gmail, or if you have another email address, let's just say it's at torybirchfoundation.org. As long as you register that email address with Google, then it will, it will automatically work as a Google account, even if you don't have to use Gmail, but you just need to register it. If your company uses a tool called Google Workspace, it's Google's business version of their productivity platform. It's like business Gmail, business docs. That's automatically a Google account as well. And so you sign in with that email address, and then you just follow the prompts to create your account. And if you did that now, actually, if you did that as of October 15th, 2020, it was all automatically going to be a Google Analytics 4 account. Okay. But what about everyone who had an analytics account before then? Oh, I'm sorry. So what was the link if you have a business account? Let's see. The link if you have a business account. Okay, hold on. Okay, I see the questions coming in. I'm going to get to this right now. So what does it mean by property name? What's a business name? Okay, so let's go through and talk about, what's in a Google Analytics account. When you are creating a Google Analytics account for the first time, it's going to ask you stuff like, what's the name of your business and what's the name of your organization, your account name. And so let's just say, let's use Tory Burch as a company. And so they're going in and they have an analytics account, and I'm making this up. So if I don't have this right exactly, I'm sorry, Molly, you can pop in and correct me. But they might, so they might have one, so they create Tory Burch, here's our account, right? And then within that, they can set up something called properties. And properties are basically, before, in the old version of analytics, it was individual websites or apps or parts of those sites. Now, with Google Analytics 4, it's basically a data stream. It's where that data is coming in, and that's associated with the property. So in the Tory Burch Google Analytics account, they might have one property that is associated with their retail websites where people can buy amazing shoes and bags and everything. So you'd have that piece. Separately, they might have another property that is still in their account, but it's separately collecting all data that came from any of the the apps and the web streams from their foundation information, which is a separate website, right? So for every, and I think it's the limit's 1,000 now, 1,000 properties per account. And you could always make another one if you had more than 1,000. But what you're thinking of doing is, where do I want this data to come in from? Where do I want to look at? And that's your property. And when you hear all of this stuff, this migration, we are migrating, we're making this huge change from Universal Analytics to Google Analytics 4. To break it down, analytics is not going away. Google Analytics is still here. You're still going to sign in the same way. The only thing that's going to be different is that when you are inside your account, when you go through the process, you're actually creating a different property type. And that property type, for the most part, doesn't change anything for you, except the types of report or the way that the reports lay out. It uses a different model and how it collects data and how it processes data on the back end, but you don't need to, you won't deal with that. That's all from the software end. And the reasons, there are a few reasons that it actually, why they're doing this here. I'll go to my next slide to introduce it. So dun, 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 we have a new evolution of Google Analytics from UA, Universal Analytics, to GA4. And here are some of the big differences. The first is with Universal Analytics, it was really limited to like, this is a website and this is an app, right? And, you know, rewind 10 years ago, that was probably enough. Like, okay, I can see what's happening. Okay, but right now, fast forward to today, where lots of businesses, you know, the purchase, especially for an e-commerce site, the customer journey is no longer linear. It's like someone might click on your website, and then they might click on your mobile site, and then they might click on your app, and then they go back to your website before they actually made that purchase, right? So there's lots of different potential paths and steps where people can kind of circle around before they do whatever it is that you want them to do. And now with Google Analytics 4, the property can track all of that together. So now you can see, you can be like, all right, well, they went from here and then they went to the app and then they went back. And that's one really critical difference in the reports. It's going to give you a much clearer picture of how people are interacting with your online properties, and not just here's what they do on your website and here's your app and blah, blah, blah. So it's a big difference. The second thing, another difference, and I'm not going to get into the huge technical details, but I mean, unless you've been not reading email or anything for quite a while now, there's a lot of talk about privacy online and how data is handled and stuff like that. And and this is not just because I'm speaking for Google. I am, and I have, Google is like, it's very easy for people to say, oh, Google is like, I'm afraid to give Google my data and stuff like that. Well, and when you are a leader in the technology space, I mean, they have to really actually go above and beyond, saying, look at how, we are, protecting your data. And this is, these are the steps that we're taking. And so Google Analytics 4 is built on this whole new kind of framework that is really privacy centric and privacy focused. It's moving away from cookies. It's really it's adding an extra level of anonymity to and it already is. Like, I can't, if I'm looking at my analytics report, I can't say, oh, look, Molly is looking at this page on my website. It doesn't work like that. But this is really going an extra step to address privacy concerns and moving away from cookie-based tracking. And if you don't know, if you're not sure which one you have, if you have analytics and you want to see, I'll show you a screenshot in a second, but I'm going to show you the way to look inside your account and see which one you have. Okay, let's go back. Let's keep going back. All right, so now we know what's happening. The product is there. It's just the property type that is changing. And the messages that you're seeing that says you must do something before July 1st, 2023. What that's telling you to do is that if you have Universal Analytics set up right now, and many of you probably do, what you need to do is go through this migration setup wizard. It takes less than 15 minutes, probably less than that for most of you. And all you'll do is you'll follow some prompts, and what will happen inside your account, you will now have two sets of reports, two properties. Your existing property, which is Universal Analytics. It has all of the reports that you've been tracking over the years. And then starting from whatever day you start, it'll start having a new separate property that's just for Google Analytics 4. And honestly, it would have been advantageous for you to have done this a year ago, 2 years ago, because then what would have happened is you would have had parallel reports. So you could actually kind of see them both together. It's okay. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's too late now. So you can't go back in time with analytics. you should go ahead. If you're in this class today, I would go ahead and set it up. If you've got that running, I mean, even a month or two is better than no months. But the reality is this is not the end of the world if you're just getting to this now. So the message that you've been seeing though, is that on July 1st, what's going to happen is, okay, so think of your properties as these buckets that sit inside analytics, right? And then someone does something online and that creates data. And the data might be like, you visited this page, you watched this video, you click this link, blah, blah, blah. And that data flows into these buckets, right? And then in the buckets, the software makes the reports that you see. So what's going to happen on July 1st is that the bucket's going to close on Universal Analytics Account, and no more data is going to flow into that. So those reports will just stop. And then you'll need to look at your Google Analytics 4 property to see from then on what's happening on your website and your app and your online properties. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm trying to explain it as it's really okay. People are like really worried about this. it's going to be okay. Now, here's the trick. Good. You will be able to go in and get your old reports and Google is saying at least 6 months. They have not stipulated an end date yet, but they are talking about an end date. So that means that probably sometime after 6 months, they're going to make an announcement and say that, hey, we're taking these reports out of your account, or your Universal Analytics reports will no longer be available. If you all go and set up Google Analytics 4 today, or right as soon as you can, then you'll start collecting data in those new reports, and you'll have that past that point. I'll also show you in a few minutes how you can actually then take that step and export your data if you want to keep it. Okay, so let's keep going. So if you are not sure whether or not you have Universal Analytics or GA4, this is how you do it. First of all, if you sign in to analytics and you see the message at the top that says, Universal Analytics will no longer process data. You see that message. Sometimes it's blue, sometimes it's yellow. You see that, that means you need to make the upgrade and go through the setup wizard. If you don't see that, it doesn't necessarily mean you've done it. You could have just closed that message and like, don't show me this message again. So if you're really not sure, you should go in and check. And what you'll do is you'll sign into Google Analytics. You'll go to the admin, the administration page, and you'll look at your property ID. And so when you go in, there'll be 3 columns. There's your account and there's your property, right? And I took a screenshot here this morning from a nonprofit that I work with, and we have 2 sets of reports set up. And you see one where the ID starts with the letters UA hyphen and then a bunch of numbers, right? That tells me that I'm using Universal Analytics for that property. The other one, it is only numbers. It's 296062. Okay. And so if it's only numbers, that tells me that it is a Google Analytics 4. Within your account, you can also label it to make it easier for you to understand. So on that screenshot, one of them just says Harmony Wildlife, and the next one says Harmony Wildlife GA4. So I actually labeled the second one to let me know that that's the Analytics 4 property. If I wanted to be even clearer, I could rename the first one to be like, this is the old one, Stasia, or Universal Analytics. But you can name it whatever you want. You can go in and rename it. So that's how you tell which one you actually have in your account. Okay, so how do you go ahead and change it? Remember, just a minute ago, I mentioned the 3 columns. So, and here's a screenshot that's going to show you exactly what I was talking about. So I'm signed into analytics. At the bottom left corner, you see an icon of a gear. That takes you to the admin page where you do all these changes. Now, from here, you're going to actually go and click on your account, and then you're going to go find the property that you want to work with. And so if you don't even know really what this is, you probably have one account and one property, and it's probably Universal Analytics if you did it a few years ago. So then you will see a link to the GA4 Setup Assistant or Setup Wizard. Sometimes I see them labeled different things. And all you'll do is you will click on that link and it will walk you through a set of prompts to then go ahead and create that setup and walk you through those steps. And you don't really need to know anything else other than that. You just walk through those prompts. And like I said, 5 to 15 minutes. And all of your basic configurations, all of the settings that you have in your existing Universal Analytics account will be able to transfer over. There are a few exceptions, but in that case, you probably have an IT department to help you. And inside the Google Analytics Help Center, I just took one screenshot. It's where the Migration Guide for Beginners. You can look that up. Google Analytics Migration Guide for Beginners. That'll get you into this page on the Google site. But there are tons of resources. There are videos that show you how to do it. There are tools that will automatically migrate the user accounts and your goals and your conversions. There is a link that shows you how to export your data. Now, we talked, going back to that, like I said, as of July 1st, the reports won't process, and then at some point those reports are going to go away. I expect that we're going to see even more information about that be published, but right now you have the ability to export individual reports in different formats, whether that's a PDF or a CSV file or an Excel file, things like that. There's also something called an API, and the API, your IT department would probably help you with that piece, but that allows you to then basically connect into the system and export that data. It was typically used so you could put it into another business software application. But if keeping that data is mission critical important for you over, however years you've had it, that's another option for you to do that. But I think we're going to see more information about that as the weeks and the months go by. But all of the stuff that you need is pretty much there in your analytics, in the Analytics Help Center. And it'll just walk you through. Okay, I'm going to take a quick look at the Q&A and see if there are any, because this was the most important part of today's session. I'm going to see if we've got any questions in here that I can answer. By the way, if you have very specific questions about a software product that you're using, I'd like to say I've used every single one of them. I haven't. There's too many. So if I don't answer your question about a specific piece of software, it might mean I don't know. But what I would do in that case is I would certainly reach out to that particular vendor. And I mean, you are their client, you are their paying client, and be like, I need you to help me do this. And that's part of the deal. If you're using the software as a service, they need to deliver that service, and it would be very reasonable to say you need to help me do this, because Google Analytics is pretty much industry standard for any applications that need to use it for tracking. Okay, here's a question from Lindsay. My website, Squarespace, has good analytics. What's the benefit of using Google Analytics in addition to those? I mean, the short answer is that honestly, Google's not going to let me say that, but it might be nothing, Lindsay. So why use Google Analytics over another analytics tool? I mean, I've got I guess I don't have a skin in the game. I don't need, it's not here to sell Google Analytics to you. It's a free option to track visitor behavior on your site. And if you have another application that gives you the information and the reports that you need to make the decisions you have, that's great. Analytics is just another option that's available to you. It does do a really good job connecting with the Google Ads interface. In fact, you can share conversions, and you can actually use audiences that are created within analytics reports and import them into Google Ads. So it's really useful for you to do stuff like remarketing, or you advertise to audience groups. So that's where you get a big advantage if you are a Google Ads advertiser. But on the other hand, why not set up both? I mean, it doesn't cost any money to run Google Analytics, so you can compare them and see, am I getting reports from one particular piece of software that are, that I would really like to see. Okay. Oh, look, people are saying they just did the migration. Super easy, right? And that's the thing. I feel like a lot of the messaging that we're hearing really has this sense of kind of scary urgency, like it's this huge deal. But honestly, the setup wizard, like you could be done with it by the time this webinar is over. It's really not bad. Okay, let's see. One thing is you do need to say, so Renee is saying they went to the assistant and says, contact your admin to set up GA4. Good point. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Renee. In order to be able to do this migration, your sign in to Google Analytics, your account needs to be given admin or owner permissions. And so if you're just a viewer of data, you won't be able to actually make that upgrade. So you're going to have to find the colleague who set up analytics or that you work with and have them do that. And they could do it, or they could upgrade your permissions to allow you to do that within Google Analytics. Okay. Can Google Analytics allow you to track how much time visitors spend on specific site pages? Yes, you can track site pages. You can track it. It's event-based tracking, so you can do that for pages. You'd need to set up that event. We don't have time to get into that today. There are a gazillion things you can do, but the short answer is yes, you can track how much time people spend. You can do cool things like see how far down the page they got. It's pretty cool. Okay, let's see, Kristen. Let's see. Kristen says, when I click properties, I have a UA. Now I have a GA4 property, but then a third property that says UA GA4 property. Was this automatically created? Oh, I'm not sure. So what I would do, Kristen, is I would go and I would look at it. I'm going to get kicked off in like 2 minutes. That's okay, because Molly's going to let me talk for 2 minutes before I leave. So what I would do is I would look in your account and remember those numbers, look and see if there's a UA, and that's Universal Analytics. And then the other one is just numbers. And it's possible that you just have 2 duplicate sets of reports set up in the account. You can trash one. It stays in your trash barrel for 35 days. So if you change your mind, you're like, oh, shoot, didn't mean to delete that. You can get that back. But it's possible you accidentally, or the system accidentally created a duplicate for you. So, okay, look at this. I love this. Everyone's like, perfect. Okay, I am going to wrap up pretty quickly, but the one other thing that people are asking is like, how is this going to impact my search engine optimization, all that kind of stuff? This has nothing to do with search engine optimization. Search engine optimization is your website and how it appears in Google and how Google ranks those pages. This is just a software tool that lets you track what's happening on your website. It's just a tool that you can optionally use. So I just really want to think of it as something that's available to you. Okay, so Molly and Desiree asked me to focus on migration, and that's what I did today. I will tell you that there is more, and I don't have time to go through those slides today because I am, well, thank you guys, that's really nice of you. But once you do have this set up, just go through your reports. It's going to look a little different. You know, the reports you can see here, they're organized a little bit differently. There will be a lot of similarities, you know, but again, you'll see, you know, a lot of the metrics that you were used to. You'll be able to do comparisons and date ranges and real-time reports and acquisition reports and engagement reports, blah, blah, blah. The one thing that I do want to leave you with, though, is that for anyone who's a newbie and you're just starting off with analytics, this is hands down and if nothing else, this is the pro tip for today. There's a box at the top right there called Analytics Intelligence. And if you are not sure how to find a report that you want, you can type in a question and it can be like, how many visitors come at 10 p.m. on Wednesdays? Where in the world do most visitors come from? And that's the beauty of it. It's using the technology to take real, simple human questions and show you the report. So you don't have to be like, what segment and dimension and what category do I need to think of? I don't even know. So you don't have to worry about that. You just type in your question here and Analytics Intelligence will give you that drop down and you'd be like, oh, that's the report that I think I want. And you click on it and it magically happens. Okay, so resources for you today. If you want to learn more what you should do after class, you should set up analytics or migrate to Analytics 4. You should learn more about setting up goals and see how you can use it to test your marketing strategies. You can use analytics to figure out what's valuable on your website and to measure results. And again, to measure results, you need goals. So figure out what you want to happen. We have a YouTube channel, youtube.com/growwithgoogle. We also have career certificates for any of you all who are small businesses. I'm going to give you a URL real quick. It's grow.google/certificates for business. And every small business can get up to 500 free seats in Coursera. It's curriculum that was developed by Google. It is hosted and managed on the Coursera website, and it is free. But you have to apply before December 18th, 2024. There it is, and there's the URL. And with that, I'm done. Okay, turn it over to Molly.
Sorry to rush you, but I know we have, of course, so many questions that you had started fielding in the Q&A box, folks who submitted questions when they registered. So I wanted to make sure, got to a couple ones that we saw bubbling up thematically. And if you don't want to answer or can't answer, we can skip to the next.
I'm good. Let's try it.
All right. So I think the first one is really just a theme we see whenever there is a big tech change of any kind in any industry. There tend to be all of these deals and steals and bad actors that pop up and are like, we're going to charge you, don't worry. And they seize the opportunity to maybe offer things that small businesses don't need. What should all the founders on today be focusing on so that they don't end up spending thousands on a migration that they can clearly do in 15 minutes?
I mean, don't pay anybody to do this. There's that. If you are, okay, well, I take that. If you are literally a solopreneur, a small business, and you have analytics running and it's, you just set it up and you go in and you check your reports, that kind of stuff, like you could literally do it in 5 minutes right now. Just follow that wizard. That being said, if you are an e-commerce site and it, and with pretty high volume and you have an IT department and that kind of stuff, they'll probably do this for you. The majority, I feel like most people are going to fall into one of two buckets. Either this is something you absolutely can do yourself, or you have a staff that's going to do this for you, or a team that's going to do this for you. So just really be careful about that. I remember when it used to be called Google My Business, and then business profiles would come out. And there were all these companies that would cold call people, and they would be like, oh, this is really important, and we'll set this up for you, and we'll do it for you for $1,000. Well, I kind of go back and forth because, like, again, you could literally set it up for free in like 5 minutes. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, for some people, like just dealing with technology, and honestly, those people probably couldn't have even joined the webinar, but they hate it. Like, it's not their bag. They would rather spend $1,000 and have somebody do this than spend 5 minutes thinking about it. And so I've kind of settled there. But I feel like for everybody on this call, like if you have the technical skills to join a webinar, you can do this. Like, I truly believe in you. You can do this in like 5 minutes.
Amazing. Well, so know yourself, but also, make smart financial decisions.
I'm here to cheer you on. I know.
A common thing that came up is really jumping back to the idea of properties and what is being tracked in GA4 now. So you mentioned that you can bring together your website or your app. Do things like your YouTube or your Instagram, are those things that are also pulling into this, or are your social media platforms a little different?
Yeah, so analytics is looking at your website, and it will track the referrers. Did the traffic come in from those other places? So you do get that information, but you need to think of it, it's your website and your app. So the places that you have tagged, so you as the owner need to be able to put the tracking code on your property to get these reports. So that's the other piece to it. So if I just mentioned you're setting up analytics for the first time, there's one other step I forgot to mention. You set up Google Analytics, but then it's not just going to magically be like, oh, look, the Tory Burch Foundation, look, that's their website. So let's show them the reports. They need to then take a step and say, yep, we own this website because we can take this piece of tracking code and put it on our web pages. We can put it on our app. And that's how the report flows in. So you can't put that tracking code on your Insta page, or, and look, I'm just making examples of other websites, because those websites belong to other entities. It has to be a page that you can track and put that code on.
Yep. And I think a question specifically came in around to like, I have this code and I need to track it, but now I don't know how to even get it on my website. And I think one of the fundamental things is like knowing what your website is built on.
Yes.
And how you need the steps that then you take to put that pixel or that tracking onto your site.
And honestly, most of the bigger platforms have made it really super easy. So there's like in the administration section, there's usually like connect to Google Analytics. And all it will need is like when you go into your analytics and you go into that admin section, it'll give you an identifying number. It'll be just numbers for GA4 and UA for Universal Analytics. And you'll just need to plug in that ID. And then if you've got like a hosted website, let's just say with Spotify, did I just say Shopify? I did a lot. It'll, yeah, you know what I meant. It'll just basically take that code and apply it to those pages that belong to your particular website on that platform. A lot of them have that in there. Actually, this morning I was, you're probably like, oh shoot, I haven't done that yet. Like I did that for one of our websites on Google Sites. Okay, and pro tip, I just learned this. Some sites for Universal Analytics, even though the ID is all numbers, there's one variation that I found. Sometimes you have to put a G and a hyphen, but that's different than UA. So Google hyphen. But so just know that if the numbers itself don't work, try the G and the hyphen.
So one of the other big things, and you touched on it, is that Google Analytics 4 is a move in the right direction from a privacy and protecting the customer data standpoint. A lot of folks have asked, I don't even know if I am privacy compliant, like what am I supposed to be doing? I guess the question being, before embarking on this path of even tracking your users, should they investigate how to become and protect their customer data, like know the basics.
And there are lots of cybersecurity courses and information being published, but like just a few quick hits. I would absolutely get a secure certificate on your website. That's when your website starts with HTTPS rather than HTTP. I would be very careful about how you collect and store customer data. If you don't need it, don't take it. Never, and some of it's common sense, like don't email your credit card numbers and things like that. But there are lots of steps. I would actually encourage folks to dig into cybersecurity. One of the things that I'm doing now for all of the sites and apps that I work with is I'm setting up two-step authentication, which is where you have to you get a phone call or a text or something to be able to access the account. So that's another really good step that, if you're having a product or some sort of account that your customers sign into, that can make a really big difference for protecting their data and their privacy.
Yeah, I can't speak more highly of the two-step. The number of founders that reach out to us that have had their Instagrams breached or their other accounts breached, and even held at hostage by whoever has breached them. It's really take that one step. I know it's annoying to do the text and the next steps, but it's way better than the alternative.
Yeah, I mean, you can lose everything that you've built, like your followers for like 10 years, and identity theft is such, at the very least, it's a huge pain in the butt. At the very worst, it can be, it can be a big hit to your business or your personal identity. So
certainly. Well, Stasia, I'm conscious of time, so I want to end with a big thank you. So grateful for you coming back and sharing your expertise with us.